We want to welcome you to our School Safety Forum. School safety, a shared responsibility, and we appreciate you all for taking time out of your afternoon, heading into your evening to be here. And I first want to recognize our superintendent, Dr. Craig Witherspoon, and you'll hear from him in just a minute. We also have members of the superintendent's cabinet here. If you will stand or wave and let us recognize you. And I don't believe I see any of our board members, but if you're here, would you please stand or wave? Thank you so much. And I'll introduce our other panelists in just a second. A couple of notes about the format for our forum. First, Dr. Witherspoon will start us off by providing opening remarks. Then each of the other panelists will present information and remarks from their perspectives and areas of expertise regarding school safety and how students, staff, parents, law enforcement, and community members can work together or continue to work together to keep our schools safe. So if any audience members have questions during the forum, if you would please raise your hand. I have 3 of my staff members positioned at each section, and they will come when you raise your hand and give you an index card if you don't already have one, and we'll ask that you write your question on those cards. Please write legibly. And they will come back and get the card from you. We do have some pens available, so if you need one, please let them know. Also, if you would like to address your question or have a specific panelist respond to your question, if you would just make a little note of that at the top of the card, we appreciate that as well. So we're going to set aside time for audience questions after the presentations from the panelists. And we'll note that if you have a question or concern that involves a confidential matter or a specific person or persons, we will have our panelists available for a little while after the forum. So we ask that you hold those types of matters till that time. So now, along with Dr. Witherspoon, our panelists are Mr. Moses Brown Jr., who is our Security and Emergency Services Coordinator for Richland 1. Moses, if you would wave at us there, thank you. Also, we have Columbia Police Chief Skip Holbrook. Everybody knows Chief Holbrook, right? Okay. We also have Richland County Sheriff Leon Lott. Everybody knows Sheriff Lott, of course. We have Ms. Toni Kelly Campbell, who is our school social work services coordinator for Richland 1. We have Dr. Candace Kopic, who is Executive Director of Information Technology for Richland 1. And we have Ms. Angela Vanderlei from Midlands Be Smart. Let's thank all of our panelists for being here. So at this time, I'll ask Dr. Witherspoon to give some opening remarks. Then we'll just jump right in and proceed with the panelists' presentations in the order that I introduced them, in the order that they're seated. Thank you so much. Dr. Witherspoon.
Thank you. First of all, good evening to everyone, and thank you all for showing up. We have had such forums over the years, and we actually started planning for this one maybe even June and July as we were getting ready for this academic year. So I appreciate security and those individuals on staff. Again, we started planning this and to have this over the summer. And I want to thank you all for being here. I do want to give a shout out to our family and parent and family engagement specialists that are here. They did 2 days, They did 2 evenings of parent pep rallies, and if you were able to attend those, we've done those. I think this is the 3rd year that we've done it, where we've brought in speakers and celebrated parents for what they do, and had Mr. John from Orangeburg to speak with parents about AIM for students and what parents can do. And this is a good kind of segue into working with parents and working with our community partners in terms of how do we all work together for safety of students while they're in our care, certainly, but also when they're out and about in the community, whether cyber or otherwise. Again, thank everyone for being here, and I'm going to yield and certainly let the panelists go ahead and give their remarks, and we look forward to the Q&A at the end.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Moses Brown Jr., and I'm the coordinator of Security and Emergency Services. School safety is a multi-layered approach. It is designed to keep our students, our staff, and our school community, as also as our visitors, safe while they're on our sites. With the school district, the support of the school district, over the last 2 years, our Security and Emergency Services Department has grown tremendously. It has grown from a two-person department to now over 40 trained, prepared personnel, with that number continuously growing. The district is broken down into zones for better coverages. We have 4 managers, and they're covered out throughout the school district for better response time and for incidents and just school events. The managers allow as a liaison with the school site leaders, with our school security associates, and also the SROs, so we can all be interdependent and working together to make sure our kids are safe while they're on our sites. So a couple of key layouts of our school district for physical. We have our school security associates on our school sites. What they do is man our weapon detectors as our students come to our school. We're personally we're on our middle and high schools with our rovers checking on our elementary schools. Our access points, all our doors, exterior doors, are access control, so no one is able just to come up and pop up on the door. They have to have a scan, issue district ID access card to be able to get in our buildings. We also have a mass notification system, which is in the case of an incident or even just a mass notification that needs to go out, everybody can be notified at once. Also surveillance. We updating our sites now. Most of them are updated with the latest technology with camera software. Emergency preparedness. Each month, in accordance with state law, we run drills, fire drills, evacuation drills, tornado drills, and that substance. There's also emergency plans, making sure that if something in case happens, we got emergency plans for each individualized school, which make sure, because some schools have some kids more with ADA capabilities, so if something happens, we have to evacuate. We have correct numbers of transportations, also the numbers of students and staff on that site, so we can send out adequate resources. We also have our mental health support program on these sites, which you'll hear later on in this presentation. The training and education. So our school security associates, which you've seen when you came in, when you walked through the weapon detectors, they're trained. They're CPR trained, they're CPI trained. I'm also an alert instructor, so they're also active shooter trained, which is a civilian response program. So as far as our district personnel, so as we come together throughout the different departments, we go throughout the district and train our different staff members in different departments, so we can all be on one accord in case of incidents. Student education, we've got programs for bullet prevention, conflict resolution, and personal safety. So as far as you hear your kids come home with some type of literature, it's some stuff that we're putting out as the school district level to make sure that we are also taken care of, and also they can get some literature to work with their friends and family. Community involvement, right here you see to my left, we have Chief of Police and also the Sheriff of Richland County. We also partner with the Fire Marshal's Office to make sure that our events and everything, the numbers are correlating with the season, to just make sure that everybody, if something happens, we are evacuating right into just the resources that we can have. Technology, you'll hear much more. We're PA systems and everything, community classrooms. Communication in the classrooms is amplified, so with certain students that may have some type of hearing capabilities, we are able to have microphones to make sure that those students are able to hear. Our threat assessments, we have our SSAs multiple times a year go out through the sites. It's not just a threat assessment on the actual threat, but it could be ceiling tile missing, it could be fire system sprinkler heads missing or damage, so we can put in work orders to get all that stuff repaired. Mostly our policies and governance are updated and then clients for the Office of Safe Schools and regarding to behavior, discipline, and report incidents. And we continuously assess and improve our district to safety-wise for the latest technology. By integrating these layers, our school district and sites can be safe and more supportive environment for everyone that visits and our students. Chief Hope.
All right, good evening, everybody. I think the important message for this evening in this panel really needs to be centered around partnerships, collaboration, and communication. As a parent, as a son of 2 retired educators, I can think of no greater discussion or matter of importance than school safety, taking care of our young adults and our young children, and protecting our teachers and staff. I'm more than happy to report that our relationship with Richmond One is outstanding. The level of communication and collaboration that we see on a day-to-day basis is phenomenal. We are in a high-stress, high-liability, just work environment every day, whether it's on the law enforcement side or the education side. And the level of collaboration that I've seen in the 10 years that I've been here is just outstanding. The emphasis that we put on placing the right school resource officers in the school to develop relationships with the student population, our teachers and staff, and work, hand in glove with the administration at each one of these schools, I think is critical. I think we have collectively have a good track record. It's important that we are not part of a national narrative, with critical incidents, and we know that it could happen anytime, any place, and we have to recognize that. So we have to work together to make sure that we are positioning ourselves to be able to respond and react, to investigate at times, to prevent, to educate, and I really think we have the building blocks to do that. We're on the law enforcement side. We've learned how important it is to leverage technology, and it's pretty refreshing to hear Mr. Brown's report out just now, just the emphasis the school system's placing on the value of technology. Connectivity is the future. Communication, direct communication, knocking down silos that would impede information sharing. Those are things that we constantly work on and need to continue to work on. That we commit to you that we will, and we'll always work to get the best SROs in the schools that are able to represent our departments and the city and the county in the way that they do. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I look forward to any questions we might be able to answer. And Dr. Witherspoon, just appreciate your leadership, and it's always a pleasure to come to Dreher. Also, they always make us feel at home. There's always stuff going on here. Good Lord, I was just commenting to the sheriff how many cars are in the parking lot. There's just always something going on. When I run into the teachers and the administrative staff in the hallway, they've always got it together. Always in charge and always busy doing something. It's refreshing to see. Thank you.
All the things that Mr. Brown talked about are great, but our number one source of school safety is the kids. It's all the kids that come to school every single day. Now, when we're sitting here, we're talking about safety, which most of people think we're focusing on somebody's done something bad. That tends to get most of the attention. I want you to think about the thousands of kids in Richmond One who went to school today. We don't hear anything about it. They come to school, they get an education, they're playing football, they're in the band, they do stuff great every single day. And we don't reward them publicly as much as we do when somebody stumbled and fell and made a mistake. But the kids are the ones who actually police the schools. They're the ones who don't want anybody to have guns and drugs and gangs in the school. It's the kids. When you hear that we've caught someone with drugs or a gun in a school, it's not because we're super sleuths. It's because relationships that we've built with the SROs, with the students, that the staff has built with the students. Because somebody's going to know, and the students don't hesitate in coming and telling somebody, and then we're able to react, and the administrators or the SROs are able to react very quickly, and we get the gun, or we get the knife, or we get the drugs. That's how we do it. It's because the kids are the ones who want these schools to be safe. They're our best tool to make sure that we have school safety. we need to continue doing that. We continue need to talk about the good ones every single day on what they do instead of just focusing on the bad ones. The metal detectors have been great. I think everybody realized in the first of the year that the kids were going to test them out, not just this district, but other districts, and they found out very quickly they work. We haven't had any problems since then, very few problems that we've had. Before the school year started, the superintendent and I had a meeting with the commissioners, with Richland 1, Richland 2, the school superintendents, and they asked me, what can the schools do better? And my response was, give us classroom time. You know, the teachers are teaching the math, English, etc. We need to be able to teach them life skills. We need to teach them about how to make good decisions on not getting involved with gangs and drugs and guns. That's our job. So we talked about it, and then we had a meeting after that with all the principals of Richland 1, where we talked about the same thing, and I will tell you now that the principals have taken that idea and they agreed to it. And our SROs are going to start getting more classroom time so we can go in and continue to build even better relationships with the students, and just also educate them about the dangers that's out there, not so much in the schools, but out in the community. So when something happens in the community, it impacts the schools. We have a program in place where something happens in the community, then the deputies and the police officer from the Columbia Police Department reports in, it goes to the SRO goes to the social worker, and they're able to deal with that child that maybe experienced some trauma the night before. You know, I don't think anybody in this room has probably ever had to sleep in a bathtub because that's the safest place to sleep. But we got students in Columbia that do that. That's the safest place for them to sleep, in a bathtub, so they don't get shot by a bullet coming through the walls where they live. And that same student has got to get up in the next morning to come to class. And don't think that child is not impacted by that. And so the social workers, the SROs are trained now to deal with that and be more involved with these children who are living in some challenging times in the community. So we've strengthened that program even more. The SROs will be in the classroom more. We have 107 SROs in Richland County, plus what the city of Columbia has. So our schools are covered. Each high school in the county has 2 SROs. And when you look at school shootings that's occurred, they didn't have SROs in those schools. Now, if someone that comes to a school that's got a gun and wants to do something, they know they have the upper hand when there's just teachers, administrators, maintenance staff. There's not somebody with a gun that can confront them. When they see a marked car parked in front of a school, they know there's somebody there that's on equal footing with them. That is one of the biggest incentives for that shooter not to go into a school. Just the mere presence of that car and that SRO is keeping our schools safe. And so that's why it's so important that we have SROs in all of our schools. But let's talk about the good kids more. Now, the hottest thing we got going on right now is after the Georgia shooting recently is school threats. Now, we don't ever want to underreact, but we don't want to overreact also. Just today, there was 5 threats made to 5 different high schools in Richland County. And those threats were just a text message or somebody telling somebody something. You didn't hear about us closing the schools and sending the kids home because that's what these people want when they do these threats. And we're rewarding them when we do that. We can tell very quickly through our IT people and our investigators if the threat's real or not. But when your child sees that and comes home and tells you, we don't need parents to overreact and keep your kids out of school. You know, I've got children, I've got grandchildren. I'm not going to let your children come to school if I think there's a legitimate threat. And Chief Holbrook's not going to do the same thing either. We're not going to do that. So you have to rely on us when we make these decisions that school needs to go on, that we know that that threat is not real. And anytime there's an incident anywhere in the United States, that's what you have. You have rashes of bomb threats. You have rashes of, there's going to be a school shooting. we can't overreact to that. Just like we're not going to underreact, we don't need to overreact. So just have confidence in that. The school district and the law enforcement, school safety is the number one thing for us. That's the number one thing. That's the worst thing that can ever happen to a community, is have a shooting at a school, because you send your kids to school knowing and hoping that they're going to be safe and they're going to get an education. And that will tear a community apart when you have a school shooting. That's why we do so much to make sure that we don't have that. Never forget that your kids, your child, your grandchildren, that's our number one tool to make sure we have a safe school, is a relationship with them and working with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good evening. I want to thank you all for spending this time with us this evening to talk about issues that are certainly close to my heart. Areas I'll speak about are mental health as well as bullying. So I actually have a couple of slides that I do want to stay on track with, so we will begin that at this point. When we think about mental health, one of the things that I would say in Richland School District 1 is that we are very much committed to making sure that all of our students are in a safe environment where they're supported and that they are sort of optimally primed to learn. So when our parents send their students to us every day, they need to be clear, they need to be sure that their students are in a position that they are going to come home to them at the end of the day. And there are several things that we do in our school district. We talk a lot about tiered intervention. We talk a lot about the Tier 1 intervention, which is something that we do for every student in our school. But one of the things that we know first is that we have to make sure that our students are mentally healthy. So mentally healthy for us means that that student is a student that won't ever, it doesn't mean that the student will ever not have problems. That student may have problems at times, but we have to remember that mental health is like physical health. Mental health you can one day not be so well, next day be very well with it. So it's not one of those situations where it is static, where you're going to always feel bad or always feel depressed. No more than you have a cold every day, you're not going to, mental health wise, you're not going to stay in a place where you are always sad or always depressed. So one of the things that we focus on in Richland 1 is we focus on putting supports in place, making sure that all of our students are sort of starting at an even tier. So when you hear your students talk about social skills training and social emotional learning, that is sort of the core of where we start with all of our students, because we recognize that mental health is important. But we also recognize that students get very valuable lessons at that very basic level. So with all students, we're going to teach them social skills. We're going to teach them how to get along with other students. We're going to teach our students how to manage in terms of when there is a conflict with another student. And we do that in a couple of different ways. One of the things that we do to support the message is that we have town halls with our students. Another thing that we might do with our students is we might have specific activities, such as maybe a special activity called a kindness walk. We'll have kindness walks where students begin to learn those key core elements, such as being empathetic toward their peer. It's because they know that if they can feel what another student is feeling, when that student is perhaps being bullied or that student is being mistreated, they find it in their heart to take action, and that action may mean to report it. So that is one of the things that we do in terms of making sure that at the very basic level, all students start with good, strong social skills. So we have, at that basic level also, we're making sure that we're doing a lot of training for our professional staff. So our staff know how to teach social skills in the classroom. Another thing we do is what we call our Tier 2. So once every student has the basics, we know that there will be times that we will have other students that might end up needing a bit more. So in the realm of mental health, one of the things that happens is we say, you know what, we taught at the very basic level some language around mental health. We taught at the very basic language how to normalize talking about a child that may be thinking about suicide. Because one of the things that we want is we want that when another student perhaps notices that there's another child in trouble or thinking about harming themselves, that they can come forth and they can feel very comfortable speaking to a trusted adult in the school. One of the things that we put in place in Richland 1 to support our students is we have an advocate program. And that is every student has a trusted adult in their school that they're assigned that can spend time with them. That is critical. You heard Sheriff Lott talk about relationships. Well, that advocate is to form a relationship with the student. And they'll be able to speak with that student, and that student can feel comfortable going to them saying that this is how I'm feeling. One of the things the advocate is to do is not to act as that mental health professional, but that advocate to take the next step, and that advocate to move forward and to get resources and supports in place for the student. So a lot of times what you'll find is what we call our tier 2 supports we'll put in place. And that is when students maybe go into a small group. And in that small group, they may get an extra dose of what maybe didn't happen in a larger classroom setting. So say for instance, they at the classroom level and at the universal level where everyone received the same thing, they heard a lesson about mental health. Then maybe you have a student that maybe is starting to then realize that maybe I've got a little anxiety going on, or maybe there's just something not right, and they are moving that student into a tier 2 or second level of service. And what we would do with that student is have that student in a small group and maybe teach various skills to that student. One of the things that you will find with Richland 1 is we don't buy a lot of the behavioral programs, but we teach a lot of skills. Because we know that social skill training is one of those things that if students have social emotional learning and they have strong social skills, they're able to deal with, they're able to address a lot of the relationship issues that come up in school, from making friends to getting along well with their teachers, and and those skills are transferable. So if you have strong social skills, we know that that will help you if you're bullied. We know that you know then how to advocate for yourself. We know that you know then how to regulate your emotions. And we know then that you know how to make friends, because we know that students that have friends, they will be less likely to be bullied. So we have a number of things that we will provide for our students so that our students can be ready and primed for learning, so that their minds will be not so much concerned about the bullying or the mental health piece, but their minds will be ready for learning. And I do have some slides up there, but I'm going to go very fast. I think one of the things that we want to really stress is we try to do a lot on the front end. Early intervention, it absolutely matters in the area of mental health. We know that if we can get a student into care early, that student is likely to have a great outcome. In terms of what we do for our staff, in terms of mental health, I think it's important to know that we want our staff to be able to recognize when our students are having concerns around mental health. One of the things that we do is we have a program that we have invested in, because it is considered the gold standard, the youth mental health first aid. It helps teachers and staff to recognize when a student is having mental health challenges, and it helps them to get resources so that student can function in a traditional school. Another thing that we've invested in, and I've heard this mentioned, is the non-crisis prevention intervention program. We have several staff members trained in that. And we spend a lot of time not only with our students, but with our staff around the issue of self-care, because we understand that in the stressful environments that we live in, this self-care is essential in order for us to function. At the Tier 3 level, and I want to talk about this because this is a really hot topic because it's in the news. It's probably considered one of the largest healthcare concerns right now, and that's the mental health of youth and teens. And one of the things that we've done and we've put in place in our schools is we have in place school-based mental health counselors. Those are mental health counselors that we have to come into all of our Richland One schools, so that if students are having difficulties and have a diagnosable mental health concern, that we can deal with it at school. That's critical because one of the things we know is that our students, that when young people are diagnosed, oftentimes they're not treated, and if they are treated, they're treated at the school. So we're very proud of that we are able to offer that. And finally, one of the things that we do, and I think it's critical that we mention, is that we take care of our teachers. Our teachers and our staff, one of the things that we do in our district, because we want them to be mentally healthy and have the lenses on to work with our students, is we have employee assistance programs in the event that our staff need anything. And we have regularly been providing self-care, professional development for our staff in Richland One. In terms of bullying, and I will go very fast on that. I do think it's important to mention that we follow Safe Schools and Climate Act, and we have a bullying policy in place, and it's critical for any school district that we have a policy in place, and that policy also speaks to making sure that our staff know what to do. One of the things you find with bullying is that people often don't know what to do. So we spend a lot of time making sure that our people know that when they see bullying, they absolutely know what to do in terms of reporting it, how to report it, and how to investigate it so that we can assist and work with our students. The other thing I wanted to, put it in your minds is that we're not going to have 15 different things in terms of behavior to deal with 15 different ways of doing things. What we do in our district is we have what I call a continuum of practices that we follow that are safe practices that say that if you have social skills training and social emotional learning, that social emotional learning can deal with just a multitude of the issues that you may find. One of the things, again, that I would go back to is that we've learned over time is relationships matter. Relationships at the very base level where every student has an advocate, to at the next level up where you not only have an advocate, but you may also have a mentor, but also making sure that we are teaching very solid skills to our students so that not only will they be healthy and able to manage situations at the school level, but lifelong, because we know that many of these issues will follow them lifelong. And if we give them the skills at the school level, that they'll be able to take them in life and be successful. We know that when parents and guardians send their students or children to us every day, one of the things that they want is them to come home safely. We have put in place some reporting systems even for our students in the area of bullying. And one of those reporting systems that you may have heard of, and we hope you've heard of, is called the Stop It Solutions, where students may report issues around bullying and they can do it anonymously, but students can certainly walk up to any adult at the school and report bullying. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. As the Executive Director of Information Technology, my role is to ensure that your children have a safe and secure access to the digital tools they need for learning here in the district and at home. With the rapid growth of technology and education, ensuring online safety has become even more important now than ever. One of the things to let you know is that we do vet all instructional applications in the district, not only to align with our teaching standards, but that our vendors we're doing business with have data privacy protections in place regarding student and staff data. We make sure that they're in accordance with the Family Educational Protections and Privacy Act, which we know is FERPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Rule, which we refer to as COPPA, and Children's Internet Protection Act, which is CIPA. You know we love our acronyms. Everything that your children should be using at home and at school is in what we call the R1 portal, which is ClassLink. And so we make sure that those things are secure. And in the district, we have multiple layers of security in place, including firewalls, content filters to protect your children from harmful content while using our district devices. One important application that we do want to talk about, and you probably heard, is called Zscaler. And that is the one application that needs to be used at home while the students are using their devices. And that's most important because that ensures that the content they're accessing is using the filters at home. We do ask our vendors to sign a confidentiality agreement so that we ensure that they're using safe and secure practices with your child's data. We also promote digital citizenship, and we educate our students on responsible internet use. This year, we launched the use of digital student acceptable technology use documents with tips on internet safety and security, as well as covering a new state piece of legislation referred to as Gavin's Law. And this is a South Carolina law that's named for a 17-year-old Gavin Guffey, who did take his own life after being a victim of someone who had blackmailed him online. And Gavin's Law is a law that makes it a serious crime to blackmail someone using private and inappropriate pictures or videos. And this is discussed when we talk about bullying as well. Know that our schools are committed to teaching digital citizenship, and this means helping students understand how to be responsible and respectful online, whether it's avoiding cyberbullying or recognizing unsafe situations. And we encourage you to continue those conversations at home as well. Just some things that we talk about with our children, and just so you can think about these as well, is think about installing those parental control software on your personal devices. Something that we talk about all the time is privacy settings on applications. Turning off those features that allow applications to track your location. I know that students love to post where they are, but disabling those features so that they can track the location of the pictures. Monitoring devices on apps, games, and websites the students are using. One of the things that we look at now is phishing scams. Check carefully. One of the things that we see going on now is a lot of emails going to students and our staff that you think they're coming to you from a teacher or from a principal or from myself, and it'll say Candace Kopic in the from line. But when you hover over the email address, it may say candace.kopic@richlan.org. And without hovering over the email address, you're clicking on links, which is the phishing scam. And that's something that we talk to our students about. Free apps are not always free. We tell our students and teachers that a lot. Reading those terms and conditions, more than likely your data is being sold. And so being very careful about that. Using passphrases, not passwords. A lot of our folks, I know we've probably all been guilty of just changing that little icon at the end when our password has to be renewed. Using passphrases, those are the hardest things to crack. I don't like having to change my password again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be harder than just adding a question mark or a pound sign. Don't sharing the personal information, again, turning off those locations. And the newest ones that's going around is text messages. You get a text message from someone you don't know, replying with, "I'm sorry, I don't know who you are." You get a text message, just delete it. These are the kind of things that we teach our students, and you having this information as well, reminding those students. So just know that we're continuing to have these conversations daily with our students, and these are the kind of things that you can continue to have conversations with the students and your children at home. And that helps us, that's that community involvement. Together we can keep our children safe and help them thrive in the ongoing digital world.
I also have some slides, so I'll get started while those are being pulled up. I'm Angela Vandelay. I'm the mother of 2 teenagers. I'm an environmental engineer and also a volunteer with Midlands Be Smart. I want to thank Richland One for organizing this event and for partnering with Be Smart along with City of Columbia Police Department and Richland County Sheriff's Department. Next, 2 slides actually. There we go. It is a heartbreaking fact that in the U.S., firearms are the leading cause of death for children. This is a public health crisis. Nearly 2,100 children under the age of 18 are killed with guns every year, an average of 6 children every day. When children are killed with guns, the majority of those deaths are homicides. Approximately a third die by firearm suicide, and about 5% are unintentionally shot and killed. Let's talk about how we can prevent tragedies like these and other preventable gun injuries and deaths. A shocking 4.6 million children in the U.S. live in a household with at least one loaded, unlocked gun. While school shootings and mass shootings typically make national headlines, almost all child unintentional shooting deaths occur in the home. And 3/4 of school shooters acquired their firearm from the home of a parent or a close relative. We believe that most gun owners want to be responsible gun owners, so we're here today to talk about what all of us, gun owners and non-gun owners alike, can do to make sure children and teens do not have unsupervised access to guns. Next. Here you see just a few headlines showing the consequences of when young people get their hands on guns that are not appropriately secured. I'd like to highlight the recent school shooting in Georgia, where a 14-year-old fired an AR-15 style rifle inside a high school, killed 2 teachers and 2 students, and injured 9 others. The 14-year-old has been charged with 4 counts of murder and will be tried as an adult. His father has been charged with 2nd-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter after authorities accused him of knowingly allowing his son to have a weapon. No story is quite the same, but all are tragic and preventable. Behind each headline are real lives that have been impacted. Next. So what can we do right now? Gun owners and non-gun owners alike can all take action to keep our kids safe. Together we can learn to be smart. Let's start with S. Next. Secure your guns in homes and vehicles. 13 million households with children contain at least 1 gun. And the majority of children in gun-owning households actually know where the gun is stored. So what do I mean by securing guns? Everytown Research, National Shooting Sports Foundation, and others suggest that gun owners store their firearms in 3 steps. Unload the gun, lock the unloaded firearm with a locking device or gun safe, and store the ammunition in a separate secure location. Next. This is it, yeah. Contrary to popular belief, locking up guns does not prevent owners from readily accessing their guns. There is a common myth that storage devices negate the self-defense purpose of owning a gun by putting time-consuming barriers between the gun owner and their means of defense. The reality is there are many affordable options for secure gun storage that provide owners with access to guns in a matter of seconds, while still preventing access by children and people at increased risk of harming themselves or others. In addition to reducing the risk of firearm suicide and unintentional firearm injury, secure storage also helps to prevent firearm theft. It's important to also remember to secure guns in cars. Research shows more than half of stolen guns are taken from cars. Prior to 2022, Columbia was ranked 3rd in the nation for rate of guns stolen from cars, though it has started to decrease dramatically with efforts by law enforcement and Be Smart volunteers encouraging secure storage. Putting a gun under a seat or in a glove compartment is not secure storage. There are car gun lock boxes available for purchase, as shown in the last example on this slide. Next slide. M in SMART stands for model responsible behavior. Every law-abiding adult has the right to decide whether or not to have a gun in the home, but you can't rely on curious kids not to find a gun. Research shows that kids know where their parents store their guns, and more than a third reported handling their parents' guns, many doing so without the knowledge of their parents. Nearly a quarter of parents did not know that their children had handled the gun in their house. It is always an adult's responsibility to prevent unauthorized access to guns, not a curious child's responsibility to avoid guns. Talk to your kids about gun safety, but remember that's a precaution, not a guarantee. One study found that young children who go through a week-long gun safety training are just as likely as children with no training to approach or play with a handgun when they find one. Parents and caregivers should teach children not to touch a gun if they come across one, real or pretend, and to alert an adult. Modeling responsible behavior means that smart adults make sure that kids don't have the opportunity to access guns. Next. As I've mentioned, there are approximately 4.6 million US children living in a household with at least one loaded unlocked gun. That's why you need to ask about firearms in other homes your child visits, the A in SMART. Next. Asking about guns in the home should be as natural as asking about any other safety issue, such as allergies and adult supervision. If it seems awkward at first, try making it part of your general safety conversation, perhaps asking via email or text if you're uncomfortable. Next. Let's talk about recognizing the role of guns in suicide, the R in SMART. Access to a gun can mean the difference between life and death. As your children get older, you may need to consider taking another look at your storage methods. If you've been using a simple cable lock, you might want to think about getting a gun safe. It's important to consider that firearm suicide is uniquely lethal. 90% of suicide attempts using a gun end in death, and half of suicides in the US are gun suicides. 70% of people who survive a suicide attempt will never attempt suicide again. If you know your loved one is in distress, you might want to consider temporarily removing a gun from your home by asking law enforcement, a licensed gun dealer, or a friend or family member if they would be willing to temporarily store your guns. Next. The National Youth Survey conducted by the CDC showed that 22% of high school students had seriously considered attempting suicide within the last year. One study showed that 41% of adolescents in gun-owning households reported having easy access to the guns in their home. Research shows that secure firearm storage is associated with a decreased risk of child firearm suicide. Next. An overwhelming body of research shows that suicide is often preventable. One evidence-based strategy for suicide prevention is called lethal means safety, which is a strategy of placing time and distance between an individual contemplating suicide and a potential method of suicide. The secure storage of guns among gun owners dramatically reduces the risk of suicide for those with suicide ideation. Gun locks and safes are all tools that may interrupt the fast progression of thought to regrettable action. This slide shows signs to look for when concerned that a loved one may be suicidal. Next. Here are some important resources in case you or someone you care about needs help. Next. T, tell. That is the power of being smart. Sharing the Be Smart message, the way we will save lives, is by spreading awareness. I'd love for you to think about who you are going to tell to be smart today. Next. Richland County Sheriff's Department has made a video that shows how to use a trigger gun lock and a cable gun lock. This video is available on YouTube for anyone to view, and the link is on the slide. Thank you, Sheriff Lott. Next, here's a list of places that you could get a free gun lock. Richland County Sheriff's Department and the City of Columbia Police Department, I believe, both have free gun locks. Our Be Smart table outside of this auditorium also has free gun locks. And you could also go online to bigwavesinc.org. Lastly, if you would like to get involved with Be Smart, our next in-person training will be held this Sunday at 3 p.m. at the main library on Assembly Street. Thank you for listening.
Let's get on.
Hey, and before we go to questions, I believe we have a couple of our board members in the audience, Ms. Harris, Ms. Clyburn, also Mr. Devine. Any other board members? I believe we have two of our legislative delegation members. I can't see anything. Senator Tamika Isaac Devine and Representative Heather Bauer. Okay, thank you so much for being here. All right, we're going to jump right into our questions, and I've kind of tried to group them as much as I can. The first question is a good question. Of course, all of them are good. But the question is, can you address how the district talks with students and addresses teen dating violence? Ms. Kelly Campbell, is that one that you can respond to?
One of the things that I will start out with saying is that once the student discloses information to us that they have been harmed and they're dealing with teen dating violence, one of the first things that we are always going to do is to encourage, one, thank the student for coming to us, but then encourage that student to speak with their parent or guardian, because their parent or guardian certainly needs to know what is going on. But we also have provided what we call forums. I know some of the high schools have done forums where people have come in and they've spoke about teen dating violence. And what we would do then is, in a situation where an individual child comes to us, is we would, if we could get that student into some counseling services. But we definitely talk with them. One of the things we talk to them about is what appropriate relationships look like, what healthy relationships look like. And that does go back to what we talked about with social skills training, is social emotional learning, understanding what boundaries look like, what healthy boundaries look like, that it's never appropriate to accept violence against ourselves or to perpetrate violence on someone else. But we would begin to talk with that child around those kinds of things.
Thank you so much. Okay, the next, anyone else want to address that one?
And I also wanted to mention that we have resources on the back of many of our student IDs that has a national helpline, so that in the event that the violent act occurred outside of school and they needed help that they could not get in school, that they could call and get support and help. So we have a 988, and then there's also a national teen dating violence number.
Thank you. The next question is, will there be an SRO or security officer available to keep students safe who arrive at school early and have to wait outside? I guess this is one for Mr. Brown or either Chief Holbrook or Sheriff Lott. So students who are arriving very early to school.
So there's around times for our staff that we get on site. So I know some sites have staff there earlier, but as far as our school security associates, if we make it available as that demand of what site it is, we try to get them there as early as possible to make sure that there's coverage at our school district schools.
Good, thank you.
And just to follow up, the principals usually establish the hours that the SRO is going to be on campus. So we rely on the principal to tell us when to be there.
And just to piggyback on both of those comments, school administrators work with parents. We really should not be dropping off students before their staff, and we know their work situations and those types of things. But do need to work with that particular school site. We really don't need kids at school when dropped off, and adults haven't reported as of yet. That is definitely a safety issue.
Okay, all right. Next couple questions also deal with SROs. So this question is for the schools in the city limits, the schools that are in the city limits, but have county deputy SRO, as they call it, from Richland County. Which one will report to an emergency first, the city or the county? This person says, as someone who has been in a public mass shooting, not knowing can delay response by far too long. So in that scenario, as best you can understand from the question, who would respond first, the city or the county?
We all respond.
Gotcha.
Without hesitation, it is a multi-agency response, no matter where that school is.
Sheriff Lott, anything you want to add to that?
Whatever SRO is going to be your first responder, and then it immediately goes out to dispatch, calls all agencies, so it goes out to everybody. So you will have a lot of people respond from multiple agencies.
Yes.
There's not going to be a time delay on, well, that's in the city or that's in the county. That doesn't exist on us.
Yeah, because I know all of our local agencies work very well together, so that is certainly good to know. Okay, this person says, several panelists mentioned the importance of SROs, and they reference recently some news reports about a former SRO who had been convicted on sexual assault charges, again in another district. And this person wants to know what policies or procedures have changed to ensure that that won't happen again. Sheriff Lott.
God is the only one going to tell us that's not going to happen again. And we deal with humans, and unfortunately that we have humans that make mistakes and that sometimes they wear the uniform. You know, our screening process is very stringent, that both of us, the City of Columbia and I, you know, to be an SRO, it is a unique position. You have to go through a lot more training than what a regular deputy does. You know, we try to make sure that we have the best, and that doesn't happen. Unfortunately, we did have one that betrayed the trust, not only the sheriff's department, but the students and the whole community, and he was arrested and held accountable.
Thank you so much. Also related to SROs, this question is about, I believe, 3 openings that we currently have, or positions, SRO positions that are not filled, and the person says they understand that those persons who will ultimately fill those SRO positions are in training. And the question is, does that mean that during a real world situation, I guess, or real world threat, that there could be 1 or more schools left without SROs until that training is complete and those persons are in those positions?
Yeah, we have 107 SROs. Yes, we have 3 that are in training. I am not going to send an untrained SRO to a school. That's just not going to happen. That's just having a body that's not trained. So yes, we have 3 that are in training. However, they're all in elementary schools where we have a low volume of issues at elementary schools. But the SRO that's in the close vicinity does come and check on the school. So it's not that they don't have somebody there in the mornings and at lunch and in the afternoon. So we do have those schools covered. And those 3 SROs should be out of training very shortly. So all the schools are going to be covered. And they're not, and I don't want people to get the idea, well, just because you don't have an SRO that's assigned full-time out there, that we're not paying attention to it, because we do.
Right. About how long does that training last, Sheriff Lott?
The academy is 12 weeks, and then we got 3 more months with us after that.
Right.
So we try to do all the training during the summer, and so these 3 are overlapping just a little bit. So,
Sure.
and then occasionally we'll have somebody that goes out on military duties, or we have some that tend to have babies and get pregnant, and so they can't work while they're pregnant.
Right.
So then we fill in. So we have other SOs that will fill in. And we're also using region deputies now. So an SRO is out of a school, the region deputies will go by and check on that school also. So it's a multi-layer effect that we have on making sure the schools are safe.
But coverage is still there.
The coverage is
Coverage is still there.
coverage is there.
Okay, the next question, first some commentary is the person underlined all, school mass shooters were current or former students. In most cases, the shooters were in crisis and at least one person, usually a peer, knew of their plans. And the question is, what are you doing to better identify and help students who are in crisis? Let's start with Ms. Kelly Campbell.
One thing that we invest in heavily is the mental health first aid training. With the mental health first aid training, as I mentioned in my opening comments, it is considered the gold standard across the nation. So and we specifically got the youth mental health first aid training. So our teachers, our school counselors, social workers, parent and family engagement folks, all of those individuals have access to that training. I know that all the school social workers and all the school counselors have been trained in it, as well as many of the school staff. So if we can identify when a student is in trouble, we can get the student into care. And we do have, as I said, in our schools, we have school-based mental health counselors, but the 3 school counselors, school social workers, and school psychologists have all been trained in their training to de-escalate students, to recognize that student who is moving into a dysregulated emotional area, and to get that student into immediate care. So we do have a crisis protocol that we follow, and we train and make sure that all of our staff every year at the beginning of the year is aware of what that crisis protocol is, so that if they're seeing certain signs, that they go ahead and not wait until the end of the day or wait until planning period, that they let one of those individuals or an administrator know, so that we can support the student.
So if a peer of a student has been told by another student that they plan to do X, they should report that information, obviously.
Absolutely, and oftentimes when there is a student that is exhibiting risky behaviors, we can rely on their peers to come to us, and they do come to us, and we do take action.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to add to that?
Also from a security perspective, law enforcement does a real good job of notifying the security office if something goes on in the community. And so what we usually try to do is the next morning or that night give them a conference call and say, hey, we need to address this first thing in the morning because this family was affected or this student was affected, so we can go ahead and jump on it on campus as soon as that student arrives on campus, or make a home visit to make sure that everything is taken care of.
Such as when we've had some threats that have been made over social media, those things can be checked out, like you said, even before.
Yes, ma'am. What we usually do, as soon as we get that phone number, we get it to the sheriff's office or the dispatch center. And while we're investigating on our side, they're also in the same line of time investigating it on their side.
There's that partnership that comes in, those relationships. So this is one that would be interesting for everybody to answer. Would you support teachers being armed?
I'm gonna start
The
off.
question was specifically for the superintendent and law enforcement.
Grab the microphone as well.
No, teachers are trained to teach, they don't need to have guns. That's our job. No.
I would certainly concur. And you've heard a lot about the sheriff and the chief and everybody talk about that training, and we do curriculum, PLCs, all of that. And we talk about all the things teachers and staff have to do. Carrying a gun and trying to pay attention to that is not anything we need teachers to be doing.
We're trying to keep guns out of school. We don't need to put them in the schools.
No.
Strong no.
Strong note, okay. All right, we hear you. All right, this has to do with the design of at least some of our schools. This question specifically references elementary schools. The person has concerns about safety protocols at the elementary schools, specifically the front office's open design, saying they have without preventative equipment, which exposes students and staff to potential harm despite the presence of SROs being there in terms of any potential incidents. Dr. Witherspoon or Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I think there may be one, and we worked on secure entrances for a number of years. And I think there may be at least one, Mr. Grant, to go, and work is in progress on that one. But just as you stated, there are other safety protocols and things in place in the meantime.
Anything you want to ask? Okay. All right, so this references, obviously, we've already mentioned, and everyone pretty much knows that we do have metal detectors in our schools. And the question is, during safety checks with students entering school in the morning, are the students' bodies, their own bodies, being scanned or checked? And this person is saying that this past Monday was the second time a weapon has gotten inside the school. So the question is, are students themselves being checked, or is it just their book bag or other belongings?
So when the kids go through the weapon detectors, they're checked with their weapon detector screening. The weapon detectors that we have is for mass weapons. So when the kids come through, if they go off, we also have the same company, the ones that go with the weapon detector. So if they're screening, if it's something that goes off and if that kid gives it up, we deal with it disciplinary wise. But if it's something else where it's a cautionary, we think it's safety, we get our SROs involved. And another thing I would like to say is most knives are not made out of metal. So they're made out of steel. So metal detector will still sometimes pick it up, but once you got a little small box cutter, 9 out of 10 times it's going to be some cheap aluminum or a piece of steel that doesn't have enough electrical magnetic for the weapon to take through. So that's why you're getting some of these knives and things up front. So what we're doing, we're beefing up the systems. You see, we had some complaints earlier in the year, but we're just making sure our schools were safe because we turned the sensitivity down just to make sure we get everything and try to get everything.
You want to start with something
No.
Okay. This person says, "Dear panel," so anyone, with Richland One's involvement in law enforcement's efforts to keep guns out of the hands of children, what has been the greatest lesson learned, and what advice would you have for other school districts in the state? So in terms of our working together, school districts, schools, law enforcement, to keep guns out of students' hands, of course, we should all be working toward that. But what's been our greatest lesson learned, and what can we share with other districts in doing that? Anyone?
I think Dr. Witherspoon, this is the softball for you.
We're probably going to say the same thing.
Brag on the success stories.
Yes, I would agree, and I can't emphasize enough the strong partnership that we have with law enforcement, with certainly what we do with social emotional learning, but the biggest thing, and several talked about it, Chair Flood as well, that relationship piece. A lot of the guns that we find, kids will say something to someone. And things will get picked up by the metal detector, but they will say to an adult, to an SRO, quite frankly, "Hey, I heard this. You might want to check this out. Something's happening around the corner. This, something on social media, whether it's the night before, someone threatened to come to the school and so forth. And they're at the home, either that night or in the wee hours of the morning. I know over the years, Sheriff Lott, we may have talked at 11, 12 o'clock at night and again at 5 in the morning. And he's saying, okay, they've been to the home, something was found or something was not found, dealing with the parents, letting our folks know, security, letting the school know, messages going out if need be, and the like. So I would say having those strong relationships within the organization with law enforcement partners helps tremendously. I just can't speak enough about that, again, within the organization and between these entities.
Next question is a very specific one. Should all office and classroom doors be locked at all times and staff be given a key for access instead of finding persons to let you in as needed? Mr. Brown or Dr. Witherspoon?
Well, it may depend in terms of the rooms and those assignments. They do work with the keying and those types of things. But the entrances, as Ms. Brown talked about, we don't want the propping of doors and those types of things. We want those secure entrances with the bags and the swipes and so forth, so we know where those entrances are. We see this in place. So if the door stays open too long, there's a buzz, and okay, we need to go down hallway 2 and see what's going on. And then, with key distribution and that type of thing, that's somewhat handled at the school site. Security is involved in that, but it's who needs the key and who's coming in, and sometimes you have substitutes, and is that for a day? Is that a long-term sub, which may be handled differently than if it's a singleton in terms of the day? Yes, somebody's going to open that door and let you in. Somebody's going to come back and lock it that day. Long-term, yes, there may be the need to issue a key. They're going to be there for a month or so, or what have you. So it depends. But the overarching goal is the right folks having access to the right places, and that's being monitored.
And no propping of doors.
And no propping of doors.
Right. The next question, is there a mentorship program within the district for troubled teens? Ms. Kelly Campbell.
Absolutely, there is. Mr. Kerry Abel would be the person, and I thought I saw him in the audience earlier, but Kerry Abel, who works in intervention services, is heading up our mentorship program.
We do have R1 champs that's now open to men and women, that we've been putting another extra set of hands in to help greet students and all, get a nice shirt, and he coordinates that program as well. There's information on the website. We have, I want to again talk about more partnerships that we have. Certainly many of our churches across the county will support either lunch buddy programs, backpack programs. There are other entities in our community that provide mentorship opportunities and so forth. So, and that's not just for students that may be experiencing difficulty, but students that just want to have, again, maybe a male figure or to be around and access to other activities, either during the day or throughout their lives. So we have a number of support programs, mentorship, and partnerships that we have with a number of organizations, and we appreciate that because that fits into the picture as well.
And we need more volunteers.
More volunteers.
Right. This person says, a U.S. Secret Service study showed that 75% of school shooters got their guns from their home or from the home of a relative. Question is, what is your plan to keep children from accessing these firearms? Ms. Vandela, do you want to start us off on that one with Be Smart?
I guess I can start by saying that all gun owners need to secure their guns so children can't access them. I mean, that's the best way to prevent those 75% of school shooters from actually getting it. I don't know if anyone has anything to add to that.
It's not called gun control, it's called being a responsible gun owner. And everything starts at home, so as a parent or adult, if you have a gun, you just need to be a responsible gun owner, and that means keep it out of the hands of children, have the gun locks or whatever it takes, but you just can't leave a gun around. And one thing I'm glad to see that we're doing now is some of these school shootings and other shootings we're having, parents are being held responsible. And they need to be held responsible when they make that gun so easily available for their child to get it and do something with it.
And did I hear you We have gun locks available at both agencies, city and county?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Bentley, you got something else?
And we also have them today
Out front,
right
okay.
outside the door.
Great.
But I just wanted to add to, and I think statistics show that many guns are taken from cars. So even if you don't have children, if you leave your gun in your car overnight especially, the teenagers in your neighborhood will steal them and then they'll have guns. So it's not just parents, it's all gun owners.
Your vehicle's not a holster, don't leave your gun in it.
I don't think we can overstate this enough. Most of the guns that are stolen out of cars in our city and county are unlocked cars. And it is absolutely a shared responsibility to secure guns. But more importantly, if you just lock your car, you can have an immediate impact on what is an embarrassing statistic for this area for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not responsible, and just a simple measure every night. He's getting ready to do
All
something.
right, everybody humor me, get your keys out, please. Everybody get your keys and hold them up. Come on, we're gonna take a second. Hold them up, hold your keys up. There we go. Push that button. How damn hard is that? Easy. Do it. Get in the habit of doing that all the time. And then it just becomes second nature. Lock your vehicle all the time, but do not leave your gun in it. Please don't. Because that's where most of our guns are getting stolen. But we have had a lot of success lately, in the last year or so, since we've been preaching this so much. The thefts of guns from cars have went down because people are listening. Hopefully everybody in this room will listen to that too, and then share that message. Vehicle's not a holster, don't leave your gun in it. And lock your vehicle all the time. Not just because you got a gun in it, anything you got in it.
And don't leave that key fob in it either.
No, God. And don't leave the spare key to the other car parked beside it, because then you just gave them the car to drive off in. Or don't leave your garage door open in the car and the car unlocked. They'll just open your garage and go shopping in the garage.
Wow. Something so simple as locking your car door can make a big impact. I can't believe people are leaving their car doors open. So, yeah. Okay, the next question is, does Richland One have trauma-informed responses in place for students and staff, and Ms. Tony Keller-Campbell, you know I'm coming to you, after a tragedy happens? And what are the resources that we have available to support them after these incidents?
Well, every school year, and I think it's been for maybe the past 4 or 5 school years, we have made sure that we started off about 5 or 6 years maybe, and we trained everyone on trauma-informed schools so that all of our schools were trauma-informed. Every year we ask that our principals allow our trauma-informed trainers to provide the training at the school, and I do know that it goes on in many of our schools every year. Now, in terms of when there is a crisis, we do have a crisis response team, and our crisis response team strives to use best practices with trauma-informed. So yes, we do have a crisis team. That crisis team is made up of a group of psychologists, social workers, and school counselors, and we respond to crises using best practices, and that's assuming that every student that we encounter has been exposed to trauma so that we're not triggering students as we respond.
And that crisis team does an outstanding job. I mean, we can't say enough about the work and the importance of their work when those types of incidents do occur. So we appreciate all of you. Okay, and this is a related question, but the statement is first. Active shooter drills have been shown to be extraordinarily traumatic to students. What plans do you have to make these drills trauma-informed?
Drill-wise, it's as pretty much safe as we can be and more or less traumatic. There's a notification that's made to all students and all staff over the intercom which in case of a real active shooter or incident where we need to lock the school down will be done, and then it's that waiting time. History and stats show in an active shooter situation, it may be that 10 to 15 minutes that we practice in the drill before you release it. It could be hours before the law enforcement and the school is cleared. So as far as the traumatic experience, the literature of it could be a little going on it, but it's something that we would have to do and be prepared for when and not if. We want our kids and our staff members to be most prepared as well as we can. So when we do our drills, there's no loud scenario type things. It's a drill, practicing what you're doing, lock sight, tie the sights to make sure that's everything that we do in our SRP protocol, which is a standard response protocol.
So one piece is to let them clearly know it's a drill.
Yes.
So that is clearly stated right off the bat.
Yes, it is.
Okay, Dr. Witherspoon?
And at the elementary level, because this question or concern has come up sometimes when we have these drills that we were required to do at least twice a school year. But at the elementary level, and I just know this from being in school sometimes when the drills have occurred, and then also talking with principals and staff, if there are students that they work with students or class in an age-appropriate manner in terms of what's getting ready to happen, why we have to do this drill. No, nothing's happening. We just have to practice, and they will have those conversations, and they will have those follow-ups as well if needed. So at the school level, again, especially at that elementary level, they try to be understanding of students that may be a little more sensitive to a different routine, so to speak, and work with them in that way.
Okay. So we have 3 cell phone related questions. The first one is, for schools where cell phone service is limited or non-existent, is there anything the district can do to help improve communication on that campus? Person goes on to say there are other districts in the country that use software to scan driver's licenses before persons enter schools that are not, and have we considered technology like that to increase school safety? So between Dr. Witherspoon and Mr. Brown?
Well, we do have Raptor that does that Raptor system that visitors will have to show their driver's license, and an immediate check is run there. With regard to cell phones, this comes up periodically as well. Some of our buildings, center block, and even with rebar, and even with working with Wi-Fi connectivity, we've added to more access points and those types of things. But the phone system, communication system that we have in classrooms and in schools allow for that communication to happen. 911, for example, can be dialed in any classroom where there's a phone. Dr. Coplick has shared, sometimes we get some false calls that happen, and they're responded to accordingly on the discipline side as well as the safety and security side as well. So that communication, if you will, is available. And again, when instance happens, whether it's across the country or what have you, we do tabletops and we do review. Okay, are we good with our procedures and so forth? So we constantly review whether it's a drill, whether it's again something that may have happened somewhere else, so that we can be as prepared as possible.
But in the areas, again, with the limited coverage, we still are able to get calls.
That is correct.
If there's an emergency. I think
Absolutely.
that was the bottom line of that person was asking. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to ask these two together. The first one is, with the new cell phone policy, the cell phone ban in schools, How can we be sure that our students are safe? Next person's question or statement first is, I understand that cell phones can be a distraction, but I'm concerned with the new cell phone policy. If there's an emergency in school, is there an alternative? So of course, that cell phone ban has been approved and districts are putting their policies in place. Dr. Witherspoon?
Yes, that policy from the state board has been approved, and districts have until January of 25 to make sure appropriate policies and so forth are cascaded accordingly. Our reading, we're still reviewing that. First of all, I'll say we have cell phone policy procedures now in terms of when they're to be out, when they're to be up. So in looking at that preliminarily right now, it's not much that we have to change. There should be up anyway during instruction and those types of things. So we do have a team looking at what might need to be tweaked based on cell phone policy, but a lot of what we've seen initially put some of the do's and don'ts and consequences and some of the fine points still left up to individual districts. Basically, the policy is you will have a cell phone policy, but the fine tuning is by the local district, but we have some things in place. Mr. Brown spoke earlier about some of the mass communications that we're able to use, and you as a parent, you may have gotten calls, whether it's something in a school or if there's, with the standard response protocol, if something has happened in the community that may, and this happened over the years, something may be going on in the community that law enforcement is dealing with, and school has to hold. We can't dismiss immediately because of something going on. The calls go out and so forth. So to parents, please rest assured, yes, you will be communicated with. We also have part of our safety program talks about, again, say if we have to relocate a school population, and depending on something that we have contingencies and all of that in there as well, and communications is a part of that process too. But please know, yes, you will be communicated with as far as that goes. Again, law enforcement there as first responders, but SROs and law enforcement responding and the like. And again, we tabletop those things and rehearse. But parents, yes, you will be informed. And some of the things embedded in that question again is what we're looking at right now from a policy and a rule, a practice procedure as well.
And of course, we will certainly inform parents about that.
Absolutely.
Well, I saved this one for last because I felt like it would be a good closing for everyone to just we'll go down and sort of get everybody's closing remarks. So the question is, what can we as parents do to help? We call this forum, School Safety, a Shared Responsibility. So I'm going to start on this end with Ms. Vanderlei and just come down, and then Dr. Witherspoon will answer that, but also give his closing remarks. But what are some things that we can all do? Because again, this is a shared responsibility. Ms. Vanderlei, start us off.
I think my recommendation is pretty simple. Secure your firearms so children can't access them.
I think from an information technology standpoint is when we send information out to parents regarding the instructional applications that we're using and information regarding technology, that you just have these conversations with your students and just reiterate what we're saying at the school level and staying up on that information we send home.
The biggest thing that I think that parents and families can do is to collaborate with our schools, to partner with our schools, and to build those trusting relationships, because when that happens, we see success for all of our students.
be a parent. Not be your child's best friend, be a parent. That means you know who your child is talking to, who their friends are, what's in the book bag, what's in the room. Ain't got no privacy at home. Be the parent. And I think when we see kids who get in trouble, it's usually because their parents are not involved in their life. And I hate to say it, just don't care. And so if you're a caring parent and you're really that real parent, then that's one of the keys to being a successful parent and making sure not only are they safe at school, they're going to be safe all over, and they're going to grow up, be a good, productive citizen.
Couldn't agree more. Know who they're with, what they're doing, where they're at. They should be home at a certain time. Nothing good happens after midnight. I don't think that's I think that old statement holds very true today. We see bad things, and it's always after hours. And I told my kids, you got to know who you're with, and when you're getting in a car, who you're getting in a car with, what's in the car, and it's just it's, as the sheriff said, parents being parents. My kids are older now, but I do still have a daughter in college, and she knows that I check all the time.
If you don't have Life 360, shame on you. It's free. Track them.
But I hope that there is some takeaway and some reassurance that there are good partnerships. There's professionals that are subject matter experts that do collaborate and work together. I pray that we never have a large-scale events at one of our schools, but the handful of things that we have responded to, it is always a massive response, immediate response. And we were very action-oriented, and you can always count on that from these two departments, I can tell you that.
Also, just piggyback on it, being that parent, being that involved parent. Sending a kid to school, not knowing what they do at home all week, not knowing homework assignments, not knowing test scores, not knowing who their teacher is. Just being involved, that's the biggest issue. And don't be afraid to tell your kid about your struggling issues, because it may be something they're struggling with that they can't vocalize. But as soon as you come and talk and open up and talk with them, they'll come and open and talk with you. It's a quote by Albert Einstein that says, we can't solve our problems by using the same thinking that we used when we created it. So when you create a problem, you can't approach it and try to fix it with that same mentality. So with that being said, just try to be stronger every day and just raise your kids and reach out to your resources. I always tell people therapy and resources are for people that want to get help. Don't look at it as for somebody looking down at you. Richmond One School District, we're here to make sure everyone from our teachers, our staff, our visitors, as they come to our campus, they leave the same way, as in one piece.
And I would echo what has been said as parents. Talk to your children about what's going well, what's not going well. We had again from the parent pep rallies that we had the last 2 nights. The speaker talked about when you're with your child, whether you're driving or at home, don't have silence. Ask questions. Get feedback. What's going on? What's going well? And we all know this, well, how was school? Good. What does that mean? Or it was okay. Ask those probing questions so that if they have a concern, you can partner again, whether that's with the school. Hey, my child's concerned about this, or they've got a question about that, or what have you. So we can all work and know that we all want the same things. Mr. Brown just said, and everybody said, we want children safe coming to school, and we want them safe going back. We want them safe on the weekends, on the evening, at night. So we all have the same goal. We want our children, this generation that's coming up, to be safe so that they can take their place in society as they grow up. So I want to say, as some closing remarks, I want to thank each and every one of you all for being here on this panel. I think this is great. We can take this on the road. Excellent information, and as Chief Holbrook said, one takeaway: we all work together, and if there is a takeaway, let that be the takeaway. We work together, day in, day out, weekends, summer, planning for next year, planning for second semester. We stay in a state of now, but we stay in a state of preparation as well. I want to thank our parents and community for being here. That too is a shared responsibility. You took the time tonight to show up. We thank you for that. Certainly we have board members, we have staff, and again, that speaks to that shared responsibility. And this won't be the last time we have this. We did these a few years back prior to COVID, and we want to make this something we do on a regular basis as well. But thank each and every one of you for showing up this evening and in this shared responsibility of safety.
Let's give all the panelists a hand. And as I said earlier, I believe our panelists may have a few minutes to kind of hang loose if any of you have any specific questions or concerns or things you did not want to ask through the cards. But again, as Dr. Witherspoon said, we appreciate you taking time out of your evening to join us for this important conversation. Have a good evening.